Welcome back, Devils fans. It is your host, Ace, here on Running with the Devils, where we are talking New Jersey Devils hockey all year long. Please hit that subscribe button, smash the like, share with a friend. Thank you very much. My allergies are killing me, so my eyes are all puffy. I'm a little snotty, so please bear with me. My voice is a little off, but there's a lot to talk about. There is a lot to discuss, my friends. Yesterday, the New Jersey Devils back at the Rock hosting the New York Islanders, looking to snap a 2-game slide, and they fall by a score of 1-0. Painful, brutal loss. Paul Cotter gets a match penalty, ejected from the game for a hit through a little elbow, may face suspension. After watching it again after the game, Cotter's not even looking at him. It's a tough one. I don't think Paul Cotter has a history of these types of things, and so as a first-time offender, he may forego a suspension of any kind, but if he does get suspended, I would think it would be a game or two. If he somehow gets any more than that and misses any sort of playoff time, that would be completely ridiculous, but we'll find that out maybe later today, I'd imagine. Hopefully Cotter doesn't get suspended at all, but if he does, hopefully it doesn't affect the playoffs. That would just be ridiculous, but that's just a side note on what was otherwise a very painful Sunday matinee. The New Jersey Devils shut out for the 9th time. The 9th time on the season. Jacob Markstrom deserved much better. I thought he had a very good outing. Only gave up the one goal that came from a, quite frankly, painful turnover by Timo. You know, mistakes happen. It is what it is. Hockey is a game of mistakes, right? And Timo coughed one up that ended up in the back of the net after Horvat sniped it in. But other than that, Markey was pretty damn good, and he deserved much better. It's super unfortunate that he couldn't get the win yesterday, and the New Jersey Devils are now on a 3-game losing streak at home at the Rock. Second 3-game losing streak at home in the last 3 weeks, and this most recent 3-game losing streak, all losses to non-playoff teams. Super painful stuff. 4 goals total in the 3 games. For those of you that are mathematically challenged, that averages out to 1.33 repeating goals per game. Not nearly enough to get wins in this league, and scoring 1.33 goals a game, quite frankly, is just absolutely atrocious. It cannot stand, and you're not going to win hockey games that way. The Devils now have not scored in 114 minutes and counting. 6 minutes away from 2 consecutive games in a row of not scoring a single goal. And it's super painful, guys. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We are literally limping into the playoffs. We very well may end up with the least points of any team in the playoffs. Number 16 of 16. We're right there with Montreal. It's at this point probable, I would say, that they finish with more points than us. But if they don't, then we'll be number 15 of 16 at best. You know, it is what it is. One of the worst teams by points in the playoffs, if not the worst. And it just kind of reminds me of last season. You know, last year the Capitals backed into the playoffs with 91 points, and that got them the second wild card spot. And what happened to them? They got swept in the first round by the New York Rangers. They did not look like they even belonged. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to the Devils, and I certainly hope it doesn't. But, you know, it's really reminding me of that. The Capitals looked like the worst team in the playoffs, and they were. 4 and out. What a turnaround for the Capitals this season, right? But last year, they really limped in. They looked horrible, and they looked even worse in the playoffs. Swept by the Rangers. And, you know, I have a lot to get off my chest right now about this team and everything going on. Not everyone is going to agree with me, and I don't need or want you to do so. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. And form your own opinion based on the facts and whatever else. A lot of people are influenced by others, and I don't necessarily care to do that. I like engaging in the conversation and talking with people with all sorts of viewpoints, including differing viewpoints from mine. On a lot of these topics, nothing could be said that will change my mind or sway me in some of these convictions. And I know that many of you that watch do agree with me on a lot, and I'd bet that many of you that watch are kind of hate watching me and disagree with everything I say and think I'm an idiot, and that's fine as well. That is your prerogative. It is what it is. But I feel like there's a ton of people out there right now minimizing these losses and going, oh, the games don't count. And while they may not impact our playoff standing or the matchups, because that's locked in, we're playing Carolina no matter what, the games do count for something. There's still games that are being played. I just cannot see a team with Scott Stevens from back in the day or Lou at the helm just showing up for some of these games and going through the motions and not trying. Last night, the Islanders had nothing to play for. Nothing to play for at all, outside of guys, looking for new contracts or potentially going into free agency, looking for a deal from another team. But outside of that, as a team, they had nothing to play for. And what did they do? They started their franchise goaltender, Ilya Sorokin. And a lot of Islanders fans online were mad about it. Some of them were mad because of the potential risk of injury. Some of them, even worse, were complaining that they wanted to just lose games and get a better draft pick. Obviously, you guys know how I feel about tanking. I think it's absolutely atrocious and disgusting. But there are tons of fans of all teams and all sports that have this mentality. I'll never be one of them. But Islanders fans were mad. People were, why are we risking Sorokin's injury? The game is meaningless. But the Islanders are starting their franchise goalie, trying to win a game. There's something to be said for that. For me, it's more than just the loss itself. It's the fashion in which they lost that is more troublesome than the loss itself. Not being able to score has been a problem all season long. I believe Keefe called it in the post-game press conference, something along the lines of, this group has been offensively challenged all season, something like that. And it's true. And here we are now heading into the playoffs, offensively challenged as ever. 4 goals in the last 3 games against non-playoff teams. Haven't scored in nearly 2 full games in a row. And aside from just the fashions of the losses, what about the fans that paid to go to that game yesterday? Yesterday was, statistically, it had to be in that arena, hundreds, if not more, people's first NHL or Devils game live, right? At any given game, there's a ton of people there that it's their first time either seeing the Devils live or going to an NHL hockey game live. Tons of them. And what kind of impression did they leave with? Also, there's a lot of people that only go to a game or 2 a year. Yesterday was probably a ton of people's, their one game a season that they bought tickets to months ago and they looked forward to all season to go see their team play. Did they get their money's worth? I think it's a fair question to be asked. They didn't even get to celebrate a single goal. Now, listen, I get it. The unfortunate reality of the circumstances, the way it all played out with the playoff format and everything, the games technically do not have an impact on the standings. I totally get that. Totally get that. But everyone's acting like there's this magical switch that they could flip when the playoffs start and become a good team. Pardon my pessimism here, but it's not like we're this 110 or 112 point team that was solid all season long and we're now just kind of mailing it in at the end of the season in these meaningless games. That's not the case at all. We've been consistently inconsistent all season long. And if this magical switch existed, why wasn't it flipped, back in February, coming out of the Four Nations break when we were desperate for points and looking for wins to get into the playoffs and hold on to our playoff spot? The team has showed glimpses of being a good team for sure. They looked like a juggernaut in December up until that cursed holiday break. They set an NHL record holding their opponents to 20 shots or less in 7 consecutive games. They were, in fact, heavier, edgier, more violent. When we were involved in scrums, dropping the gloves, the team seemed to respond and just play much better when they were engaged in these mini types of wars. And we're a far cry from that team right now. And a lot of people are angry with Sheldon Keefe. I get it. I do. I really do. I'm not one of them. But you really have to be realistic about the hand that this man was dealt. His team was plagued with injuries. The Devils, again, injury plagued last season, plagued with injuries yet again. Sheldon Keefe's superstar center, Jack Hughes, suffers a season-ending injury. 2 key defensemen go down in Jonas Siegenthaler and Dougie Hamilton. And it's just an unfortunate set of circumstances. I'm not going to rant again about the disappointing deadline day, but the harsh reality of this whole situation is that Sheldon Keefe was forced to bring a pocket knife to a gunfight. I think many coaches in his situation would have fallen right out of a playoff spot. Kudos to Sheldon Keefe for keeping this team on the rails and getting us to the playoffs. The 6-1 loss at the Rock on deadline day could have been the beginning of the end for many coaches and many teams. I truly believe that. This group found a way to play just good enough to sneak into the dance. Just getting to the playoffs, though, is not really an accomplishment worth celebrating. Am I happy to be in the playoffs? Absolutely. Did we have to overcome a ton of adversity to get to this point? Yes. I am thrilled to be in the playoffs. Making the playoffs is always better than not making the playoffs, no matter what the outcome is. I've talked about this time and time again. But getting to the playoffs is not a real accomplishment. This needs to be the standard. The window to win a cup officially opened in that 22-23 season. That is the reality. This team set a franchise record with 112 points. This team beat the New York Rangers in a beautiful 7-game series in the Eastern Conference quarterfinals, and that should have been the turning point. That really should have been the turning point. We should have been a perennial playoff team with a chance to go deep for each and every season after that for quite some time. Last season, we had a major regression and took steps backwards when we failed to make the playoffs. I'm not going to go into that whole tangent again either. A lot of you know how I feel about that. But it cannot and should not happen. It is completely unacceptable. The goaltending was a situation all season. We didn't do anything to fix it till deadline day when we got 2 goaltenders, Jake Allen and Kakinen, when it was way too late. And it is what it is. It was a season lost, a season down the drain, and a precious season of our core completely wasted. But that's water under the bridge now. Now the offseason came. Fitz went out and got Jacob Markstrom. Super jacked about that. And then made a ton of other roster improvements all over the place. Stole Kovacevic from Montreal. Made the trade for Paul Cotter. Signed Brendan Dillon. Signed Brett Pesce. Who am I forgetting? Signed Nason. Obviously Markstrom. I think that covers all of it. But a beautiful offseason in my opinion. However, I did say at the time, while I was praising the offseason, I said, this is a great start, but the real test and the real report card, whatever you want to call it, of a GM is what they do in season. And last season, myself and many other Devils fans were furious with the hope and wish approach that the goaltending would miraculously fix itself. It never did, and we slowly drowned due to poor goaltending. So Fitz gets Markstrom. He had 2 years left on his deal this season and next season, and nobody can tell what the future holds. Next year could be his last season in the league. Obtaining Jacob Markstrom to be your starting goaltender is a win-now move, and you must maneuver as a win-now franchise. Period. The end. You must do everything in your power to put as good of a team in front of him as possible. Tomorrow or next year or the year after that is not guaranteed. Shit happens during seasons. You saw it last season, you saw it this season. Tons of injuries, guys go down, and I just don't know what people keep waiting for. Are we waiting for this perfect season where nobody gets injured whatsoever and every break goes our way and every lucky bounce for all the stars to align, and when Mercury is in retrograde, maybe then, just maybe then, we could go on a serious run and we could talk about seriously trying to win. I mean, it's just all crazy. Things happen. You have to adapt and move on. To continuously wait for this miracle combination of events or non-events in the case of injury is ridiculous. Now, listen, I'm just trying not to be super bitter. Here we are, right? It's been a roller coaster season, the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. I appreciate all of you that have been rocking with me all season, or some of you even longer. And I'm obviously going to watch these last 2 games. But what I will tell you is that I am not putting any stock into them whatsoever. Based on what we've seen in these past few games, they're not really going to try. They're kind of going through the motions. It is what it is. And there's not going to be any information that we can gather from these remaining games before the playoffs. They will not tell us anything good, bad, or indifferent. Just going through the motions. We will get our real answers about this team in about a week when the Devils go to Raleigh for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference quarterfinals. What team is going to show up in Raleigh? Will it be the team that consistently loses to bottom feeders, or is it going to be that team that beat Florida on their home ice in back-to-back games in November? Will they look anything like the team we saw in December? Will they look like the team that beat the Blue Jackets head-to-head twice in about a week in mid-March when they were right on our heels? Those were massive games. What about that team that beat Minnesota twice in a home-and-home series at the end of March? Or that team that shut out the New York Rangers twice at the Rock? I will remain hopeful that we will see the competitive version of this team come the playoffs. That's all I could do. I love this team and will support them until the day I die. I want to see this group win a Stanley Cup so badly, as many of you do. And, this little stretch here heading into the playoffs, it's tough, and I see all sides of it. But, if it was up to me, I would prefer to see the team try a little bit. I do think losing kind of leaves a lingering stench on you, if you will. And I don't believe that magical switch exists where we could just, all right, guys, now it's time to win, and we're just going to turn it on and be this great team. Because if they had that capability, we would certainly have more than 89 points right now, and we certainly would have flipped that switch in tons of games that we needed to win after the Four Nations break. If it was that simple, we would have done it by now. And so I'm at the point now where I'm, trying to be realistic, and I'm going to say that we are who they thought we were until we prove otherwise. And so far this season, we've proved to be consistently inconsistent, capable of beating any team, and also capable of losing to any team. The Carolina Hurricanes are no slouch. Yes, they've been slipping as of late and kind of sucking as well, but that doesn't make me feel much better. They are a well-coached team. Rod Brindamore is a great NHL coach. A lot of his players have been down the road before. They're battle-tested playoff warriors, and they know how to get the job done, and they are going to turn the heat up on the Devils tremendously. Are they going to be ready to respond? Are they going to be ready? Because if they're not, it very well may be a quick series. Obviously, the entire world is picking against us, and that's fine. We are in the spot we are in because of the season that we had, and we deserve all of the naysayers and the critics that are out there. We do. But now it is up to this team to prove them wrong, to go out there and finally beat the friggin' Carolina Hurricanes, a team that I hate. I can never hate a team as much as the New York Rangers, but the Hurricanes are 1B on my hated list. They have had our number for years and years and are a constant thorn in our side. Can this group rally behind Jacob Markstrom and find a way to win? Now, it's going to take a lot of things to go our way. And a lot of players are going to have to step up. We're going to need contributions from everyone up and down the lineup. We're going to need some unsung heroes to start producing out of nowhere. And I'm going to have a bunch of videos leading up to the playoffs about all of these different things, kind of, X factors to the series, things to look for, and, all of my kind of deep thoughts and hopes for the series. But it's not going to be easy. It is going to be a battle, and I just think, when going to battle, you're best prepared by kind of treating the last couple games before the playoffs as a true dress rehearsal where you are trying to win the games. But I understand trying to avoid the injuries and all that stuff, but it's just kind of frustrating to watch, and I think it does have a negative impact on the fan base, obviously, and I think it could on the players as well. But I am going to be optimistic. I hope they prove the world wrong, and I hope they go into Raleigh and get a split at least in those first two games. If the Devils could come back to the Rock tied at 1 after game 2, that'd be a tremendous win in my opinion. Now, I'm not going to go too much into all this stuff right now because, like I said, I'm going to have a bunch of videos coming out leading up to the playoffs. But a split in Raleigh would be huge. But wow, guys, it's just brutal right now. We just have to get through these last 2 games, and then the games count again. And there's no more excuses. There's no more spin jobs. There's no more anything. It's, will this team be prepared? Will they show up? Will they play 60 minutes? And will they put it all on the line to prevail in an absolute war with the Carolina Hurricanes? This is war, guys. Make no mistake about it. In case you forgot, go back and watch some of the clips from all the playoff series last year. They were absolute wars. Nothing short of warfare. All playoffs long. And the Florida Panthers, a warfare hockey club, prevailed and won a Stanley Cup after failing to capture the cup the year before. Falling in the finals, but they made good. Got all the way back there and won last season. So I said a lot here. I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. I'm sure tons of people will be pretty much in agreement with most of what I said. I know a lot of people will be adamantly opposed to what I said, but, it's just my opinion, guys. Nothing to get that mad about. It's just sports, right? But I'll always love this team, and I'll always support. I am hopeful, and I'm hoping they could somehow surprise us all and get out of that first round. And if somehow that happens, if we could finally slay the dragon of the Carolina Hurricanes and get that monkey off our back, then the sky's the limit. Then the sky is truly the limit, I do believe. If we get out of that first round, my God, the team will be fired up, jacked up, and anything could happen. But let me know what you thought about anything I said in this video in the comments. Anything, everything, New Jersey Devils hockey, you just throw it out there in the comments. I enjoy talking to all of you. Shout out to all of you that came out to the post-game live. If you're not familiar, I do a post-game show after every game, typically when MSG goes off the air. I think we might be done with MSG now, but whenever the post-game show goes off the air, I go on and either celebrate or commiserate with all of you Devils fans. I pull up all the comments from the viewers and We just chat about all kinds of things, the game and other Devils topics. And so if you're interested in that, I'll put the link in the description. But yeah, I'm curious to hear from all of you kind of where your thoughts are and how you're feeling at this moment while we just kind of have to go through these next two meaningless games before they count. Before we go to war in Raleigh, I'm fired up, though. You know, like I said, getting to the playoffs is nothing to celebrate truly, but it feels good. You know, not being in the playoffs last year and watching all the rounds without ever even being in the dance, it really hurt. And we're back, guys. We are back in the dance, and hopefully this team could flip that magical switch that I'm not convinced exists. But I hope I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. Flip that switch and come out and get it done. Get the job done and knock out the Hurricanes. It would be beautiful. But I look forward to talking to you all soon. Thank you all for watching. I love you all. Like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz. Until next time, friends, let's go Devils.